Hello and welcome back everyone to this live demo series on UI5 Flexible Programming Model Training with me Anubhav on anubhavtrainings.com. In the last episode, we learned about adding a custom building block to the object page where we included our table reusable component for the smart table related to the bookings. In our today's session, we are going to proceed further and we are going to add a chart building block to the object page section. Before we move on to the chart building block on this section, let's understand what we would like to demonstrate to the user. So we would like to add a beautiful analytical chart to the object page as a custom block for chart, which will show for different airlines the total count of flights which are booked. So let's say American Airlines, there are 100 flights which are booked. For Lufthansa Airlines, there are, let's say, 120 flights which are booked. And for, let's say, Japan Airways, we have around 160 flights which are booked. So as you look at this chart, it has two important things. One is the x-axis and one is the y-axis. On the x-axis, we are going to put the airline ID. This is called dimension in case of SAP. So if you want to build a chart in SAP, you have to put the x-axis and that's called dimension. On the y-axis on the other side, we have the total count of flights. So we have count flights, which is also known as measure. Very nice. So that's your y-axis. So in order to plot any chart, we always would need these dimensions and measures. Now, when it comes to dimension, we already have this information available in our booking database table. But when it comes to count flights, this information is at the moment not available anywhere. So we need to calculate this count at runtime by counting the unique booking IDs, which is the primary key of the booking table, so that we can know how many bookings have been done for a particular airline, or for a particular customer, which are your dimensions. So the first thing is our data source. Usually when we build analytics use case, we always start with views. Views are optimized way of reading data from your database tables. They also can combine multiple database tables to abstract and project the data which we truly need for our use case. So this will be the step number one. The step number two will be we need to write a aggregation capability. We need to build aggregation on top of the view, which will be done through annotation in Cloud Application Programming Model. Here we will define what are my dimensions and what are my measures. And if a measure needs to be calculated, we need to provide the calculation for the measure. Like what is that on the basis of which we want to aggregate. So in this case, we will be counting how many unique booking IDs are there. So this will be an aggregatable property. The booking UUID, which we will calculate as a total number of flights. So I will be adding that annotation inside a special file which we will create called capabilities.cds as part of our F folder. Once that part is done, we are going to go ahead and add a chart building block. A chart building block consists of two sections. The first component as part of chart building block will be the chart itself. So we will define a chart annotation, and then we will integrate this chart annotation. So where we will define how my chart will be rendered, the type of chart, and etc. And then we will add that as a block. So this will be the step number 3. There will be 2 steps to add a chart building block to our object page. So there will be 3.1 adding a chart and 3.2 adding a block. So let's get started step by step, all the steps which we need to perform over here as part of building a chart building block to our Fury application. It is extremely important first to understand the functionality, the use case, and the approach before we get into code. because coding you can also get it from Google or from anywhere. But important is to understand how it is being achieved, what capabilities does SAP offer, and how do we apply them in the real-time use case. For more interesting concepts like this on cloud application programming model, please feel free to join our course on SAP BTP development. Let me move on now to back to our business application studio where our application is currently running. And you see we have left some space over here for the custom building block. There is a lot of space I have left empty over here in this section to basically utilize this space to build a chart and project the chart over here in the building block. So I'm going to switch over back. So first I will show you the schema.cds file where I have already added a view. You can see there is a flight booking view, which is exposing customer ID, last name, booking UUID, which is a primary key of the booking table, name, VIP booking, and travel association. So this is all what we are exposing as part of our view already in the data set. So the view is ready. So step number one, I'm giving it to you out of the box. When you pull my code, you will see that in the schema.cds file. Step number two is I will add now the aggregation to be able to annotate my entity for this view, to add the aggregation to calculate the unique count of booking IDs so that we can build this chart eventually at the end to see total all the counts and build an aggregate on top. So I'm going to go back and we will add a new file under the F folder, capabilities.cds. Let's do that. And then inside capabilities.cds, we are first going to say using travel. It's better I will generate. Yeah. And I say SRV folder, travel service.cds, and from there we will get the travel service entity. Very nice. So that's what we import. And once we import that, we are going to refer to this in the schema.cds our view entity. So we will annotate our view entity from travel service dot booking flight. That's my view name. And we will start the annotation over here. So first annotation which I will start with aggregation dot apply support. So now we will apply the supported aggregation over here. We will first put here our transformation, what we want to achieve. So basically I want to aggregate the data. I want to total the number of bookings and I want to also apply the group by. So we will call here aggregate. Please aggregate my data and also please group by my data. So it should be in small letter. So this is a predefined transformation type which we have added. Then we will say roll up property to none. We will add also the groupable property. What is that? Allowed to be grouped. So in this array, we will pass our property names from the view. So we will pass customer ID based on which we can group. We can also group based on airline ID. And finally, we say aggregatable properties. And there we can add an aggregation type record, and we specify the booking UUID to be aggregated. How? So this is going to be an aggregation on dimension where we are going to count the total number of bookings. Yes. So we will say how many bookings are there. So this information is not there in the view. We are going to build it at runtime with the help of annotation so that we can get the count. So there will be a new column which will be generated at runtime. So we will come back and we will just add here annotation called analytics. And in this we say aggregatable property. And now we will put our property name which we want to aggregate. So aggregation method will be count distinct. And the name of the property will be new property which will be created will be count flights. So this will be a new property which you will see at runtime will be created once the aggregation gets applied. And this will be done on the booking UUID. So please count how many unique booking UUIDs are there and that will be new property. We can also give a label over here. So we can apply a common annotation dot label, and here we can specify the value of the label which we want to print on the screen for this particular new calculated property. So we can say booked flight per airline. Yeah. So that is what we will do. Cool. So once the capabilities is added, you can see the live loader is automatically appending everything. And our next step will be to go ahead and add a chart building block now. So to add the chart building block, now we can go ahead and utilize the guided app development. So we can just come back to the application, select the application and choose Open Fury guided development, which we've been using by far. And we will be choosing to add a chart building block on a custom page. So come here and search for chart. And when you come down under the custom page section, we see a chart building block over here. Let's select that. As I mentioned, there will be two steps there. So you can see step number 1 was adding views. Step number 2 was applying aggregation, where we are counting the UUIDs. And step number 3 now will be having 3.1 and 3.2, which is adding a chart annotation and adding a building block. So you see these two steps, adding a building block and adding chart annotation. So let's start the guide. And the first step, we will specify the qualifier for the chart. So we can provide a unique name for the chart, whatever we want to give. So let's say chart by or booking count by airline. So all airline bookings. The chart type, I am going to choose it as a default, which is column chart. We will choose the CDS file as the annotation.cds file as our step number 1. Then we will choose our service as travel service. And of course, I will be choosing my entity as the the view which we have, which is booked flights, on top of which we already added capability for aggregation. So that system can pick up that aggregation capability. Yes, that we chosen. We put the chart type, the chart title. Now you can see that usually when you open the guide, you directly being redirected to this section. Because my browser zoom level is very high, if you zoom down, then you can actually see all the sections properly. So do not miss out on the upper section, which is kind of not highlighted by the guide. So let me go back to zoom again. Yeah, okay. So the next section which we will add is the dimension property. So remember the x-axis and y-axis. So I will add here the customer ID and I will choose it as a category. And then we will also choose the next property as an airline ID as a series. So let's add a new dimension. So it's just injecting a new dimension now, where we will choose airline ID as a series. So that's my configuration for x-axis. So airline ID, and we will choose it as a series. Yeah. Okay. So next section, we will add the measure property. So for the measure property, we will be choosing the aggregated property count flight. So now let's go ahead and choose the measure property, which is y-axis. So when you select, you can see it has got the property at runtime. You can see whatever we have added, we can include that. And we are just going to add also it as axis 1. Perfect. So we will insert this and the annotation will get created into the system. We will see that soon it will inject our annotation to the annotation file. And in case in future, if you would like to change, you would be able to also change the same. So when you come down, go to the bottom, you will see that it has added the chart annotation with the name called booked flights. So our next step will be to add building blocks. So let's go to step 2, which is 3.2 as per our design. And we will add a building block by choosing the custom section where we would like to add this block. And I'll say, I want to add a booking aggregation or booking statistics, and I will choose my service, travel service. My main entity is going to be, of course, again travel. And from, because user is first going to choose a travel on the first screen, right? And then user will drill down. And when user drill down, we are going to go to our view navigation property, which is to booked flights. And we already have created a chart annotation. So system is going to now show that chart annotation to us. We choose that as a chart qualifier. We choose aggregation path as content. We can ignore the filter bar ID because we don't want to filter anything. We choose the aggregation chart personalization type as type and item. And nothing, we will choose as a selection change function. We can say handler dot on chart selection change. So this function I will be adding in our controller file in a second, or maybe in the next episode, so we can add some bit of logic related to when somebody click on the chart. Yeah. All right, so let's insert the building block, and that of course gets inserted in the fragment. You see next to the table, we've got a chart fragment inserted inside the fragment with a handler for on chart selection change. Perfect. So this let me lead to the output screen. And when you go back to the output, we can just kind of close everything and just kind of reload our application again. So let's start, right click and say preview application. And then we're going to choose option number 2, watch without any cache, to reboot and start our application again. So it is just booting up and our application is starting here. We click on go button to drill down now, and I will drill down to, let's say, this particular record. So after we click, it will drill down, and when you scroll down, oops, there is an issue, and this issue is telling that there is a processing issue in the block. Yeah, and the issue is telling me that there is basically, let me expand. It says that spaces are not allowed in the ID parts. Yeah, so that's the problem. Yeah, what we are facing. So now we are going to go back, and we are just going to come here, and you see there is a mistake in the code of the generated block. In fact, it's a mistake by my side. I will just update the ID. It should not or never have a space. And just let's go back again to the output. We should see the tracing information if it fails, and it doesn't. So voila, you can see now over here a beautiful chart showcasing all the statistic information about the same. So you can at the moment where there are no further dimensions available, but this is how it shows. Now one problem is with the sizing of this control. So we basically need to apply the correct layout so that we can actually optimize the experience both in the mobile, tablet, and desktop application. So that's something which we need to change for this grid container. So basically we can go back always and provide the information for the grid container. So let me do that. I'm going to include the layout information for the grid container over here. Yeah. So we will choose the default span property that controls the width of the control in the mobile, tablet, and desktop. So we will choose, in case of large screen, it should take 6 column per block. In medium also 6 column per block. And then in the small, but in mobile phone, on a smaller screen, we will be taking the complete 12 column layout. So this will adjust our layout for the screen on the chart. So when the application reload on desktop, tablet, and mobile phone, it will automatically adapt our screen size. You can see now in case of a desktop, it looks like this. If I go to the smaller one, you can see it's automatically adapting our application according to the device size or the screen size. So that is the benefit we get when it comes to the grid control. We can always get the benefit for the Git control like this. So now you can see the data is popping up for these particular booking ID. Cool. So this comes to the end of this episode today. And what we learned was we have discussed about working with the concept of chart building blocks in SAP UI5 flexible programming model. And then we included also the annotation related to chart. We've also dynamically calculated an aggregated measure through the CAP model. Thank you so much once again for joining the episode. I'll see you in the next episode. Have a nice day and goodbye.